It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
Oh, am I only bleeding?
I know. No. It is the Dev Friday Show. Tim just forgot to hit record, so he was slow on the draw to introduce it, and then Mark is realizing that he cut himself shaving. I did.
I must have.
I don't know what's going on. I obviously never have that problem.
I probably should look at myself in the mirror in the morning, but on Fridays I only look at you, Tim. When I watch the video back, this is when I actually see myself.
We know that's not true. We know that's true because basically you watch yourself. That's what I have come to realize in this whole thing and then you watch the video again and try to turn it on to HD and you see yourself in HD and all that kind of
I gotta stop doing this. I gotta stop doing this.
What a start. A little rocky, but we're both, I think, streaming. I think we've both hit record. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh,
all right.
Man, I'm like having a nosebleed here.
Yeah, I think we may need to, somebody needs to call the emergency room for Mark and get him shipped over there really
to turn off my video. It's gonna get obscene in here.
What am I gonna do? I'm gonna turn off this, turn off that. All right. So this is new level of unpreparedness on this one, because you just dropped in like 30 seconds before we started and you said something that surprised me. I must admit I was taken aback by it a little bit. You said you had to reboot your computer. I thought you were running Linux.
I know it's been smooth sailing except for OBS is a little bit flaky. It's a virtual cam feature in OBS, which I love. I love using OBS as my primary kind of video. What's the word? Not distribution, but kind of my primary kind of video source for all the other applications.
Yeah.
So if I'm running a Zoom session, if I'm running this, we're on Restream right now. Anything I need to feed my video through, I like starting with
OBS so you can do some changes to stuff.
And it was working. Actually, it was working fine. I taught my class on Wednesday using it. Met with some students. It's totally fine. And I didn't, for some reason, if I don't reboot my computer in a while, which is what happened this week, and I try to open up OBS again and turn on the virtual cam and nothing happens. Press the button.
That's weird.
And the only way to fix it is to reboot my computer. So that's what I had to do about 2 minutes before we were supposed to start today.
See, that's the thing. Because I look at, now the uptime for my desktop is surprising because it's only 24 days. But I know there's been times when my desktop has been up for months at a time. Yeah. Without, there's no need to reboot. It doesn't need to be rebooted, right? So that's surprising. Now I have the same philosophy, and I don't do it with OBS. Everything that I do goes through the A10 Mini.
Look at you, sound professional there.
I know, right? So
the A10 Mini.
I can punch different things because I take feeds from the different computers. The thing that's terrible about that, Zoom, if you do a screen share, it's like a high fidelity screen share most of the time. Mm-hmm. But if you're just sharing your video or you're like mapping your input video to your what Zoom thinks is a camera, it does not. It does. There's much compression going on that is not good for text.
Yeah, and you will see this if you are a developer and trying to share your screen with other developers and try to show what you're working on. If you forget to share your screen, you're just talking, and maybe you have, like me, you're switching through like OBS or some type of video editor, we can switch between your desktop and your camera view. And I'm doing that behind the scenes, like outside of Zoom. But then if you forget to share your screen, they'll say, "Oh, I can't read it. It's like fuzzy."
Right, that's fuzzy because then you have to like share. Well, and for me with Zoom, you have to go share screen. Then you say share content from a second camera, and you actually share the camera. Yeah, and then it's weird too because it still has your face sometimes. Like it's actually your video feed plus your shares. It's weird, but we actually have a sticker that I don't know. I think my camera's reversed, so I don't think anybody can read it. And obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, it's hard to read.
I can't read it.
It's a little sticker that says "you sharing" and it has the share screen button because of the amount of times some people on our team talk, and then you're like, "Wait, do you think you're sharing your screen? Like you're walking us through something? Do you think you're sharing your screen?" It's like, oh. I thought I was sharing my screen, so we sent out a little sticker for the last dev meeting.
The most annoying
that gift box that you didn't get.
I'm still waiting for it. Still waiting for it in the mail.
Bunch of stickers.
The one thing I hate about Zoom though, when you share your screen, that annoying bar at the top. I know you can.
You
I
can
know you
never
can move it.
put
You
it in a good place.
And if you have dual monitors, if you remember, you can move it to your other screen.
Other monitor, yeah.
But I've actually had that actually crash Zoom on me too, so I don't know if I'd highly recommend doing that.
It gets confused when it's not in the screen you're sharing.
But it's so difficult when I'm trying to share my screen and for the purposes of sharing code or sharing what I'm doing in an application, and my cursor is moving around. And if your cursor goes up to the top there, that bar takes over, and it takes forever for it to go away, and it's just super annoying.
So annoying. The one thing I can't figure out too, I think I finally actually realized how this works. But have you ever used the annotation tools in Zoom? Like to write on a screen sharing?
My colleagues do, because they do it when they do their critiques or their reviews of student work. They'll mark it up. I haven't. I don't know. I think I tried it once or twice, but I haven't played with that too much.
I find that once I get in that mode, I can't figure out how to get out. It's like I just want to click around normally now, and it like takes over. I think it's right click or something got me out of it the last time. I was like, oh, is that how they do it? But no, I'm actually, I don't know if I would say excited, because right now, for those who know my setup, I have my Linux desktop, and then I have my Surface Studio laptop, and the Surface Studio laptop is what I do all my Zoom or this show on. It has a second monitor too that I have Slack loaded on all the time, so I can, have this separate from my code. But when I'm talking with devs in the team and I have to share the code, it's like, well, if I just hit the button on the ATEM that puts me down in the corner, which is great for presentations, right? Like it's great for that YouTube, like, hey, my head's still going to be in the bottom corner, but I'm going to show you the screen. But it's terrible because Zoom doesn't do a great job of that. And then I have to click, share screen, do all this weird stuff. So I am kind of excited to hopefully transfer my use of Zoom over to my desktop machine. We'll see then how well Zoom runs on Linux. I hear there's some interesting things.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's kind of interesting too. Like Linux is a beautiful thing. It's amazing. It's so my computer's running faster. My laptop especially is running faster. My you talk about your Windows Surface, the Windows Surface Go laptop. I love Linux on it because it just feels like a faster battery life, give or take. I don't think it's much of an improvement from when it was running Windows on it, but definitely from a speed and just responsiveness.
Yeah.
Oh, and Emacs, Tim, it runs so smooth on Linux. Like that's honestly, that is the reason why I went
listener base.
That's why I went back to
Emacs
Linux
on Linux. Yeah.
Linux on every one of my computers. I even installed Linux Pop! OS on my school work computer, my office computer. Right. And now it's like the drive is encrypted. So if I do anything fishy at school, they won't know. It's encrypted. It's on Linux.
Yeah, it requires
totally secure.
Your password
they can't track me.
No,
because I'm running my VPN. It's perfect, right?
Look at you. Look at you. Look at you. We're back into this weird, like, money launderer or professor type of a
but there are, like you mentioned, there are like certain applications are a little bit not as well supported on Linux as they are on Windows. Like I was talking about the OBS, like the OBS does run really, really well on Linux, but then the one feature that I really like is the virtual cam feature that I could basically run the video feed through it basically creates like a virtual camera. I could assign that virtual camera in other applications. And I have to install like an extra plugin for that to add that feature, and that plugin just doesn't seem as reliable but on Windows it's totally smooth. It always works and it never crashes on me. It feeds it through any application, and it's seems to do well. Zoom, yes, Zoom seems to be a little bit slow and clunky.
I've heard that Zoom gets confused about your audio device. Like I have devs on the team that it's like every time they boot up, they're like, "Oh, I got to go find the setting and be like, use this mic."
And I wonder if, it seems like I updated Pop! OS on a bunch of my computers this week and a ton of updates. It seems, I don't know, this week from the audio, I saw the same thing. Like the default audio switching was always happening, not just in Zoom, but in other applications. Like when I join you on Fridays, I always had to verify, is my mic selected and is my speakers head selected?
Right.
It seems was working fine this week. So I don't know if some Pop! OS developers pushed an update that fixed some of this default audio switching or not, but it's working pretty well. So
yeah, I guess it was most of the devs that were on Ubuntu, and I had one dev I think that was on Ubuntu, and moving to Pop! OS, it seemed like it cleared up that whole change your default audio like to something stupid. Like I've occasionally had I've occasionally had Pop! OS go from using my actual output to using my HDMI output, which is pointless because I don't have speakers plugged into my screens, right? But that only happened to me once. Usually it's Pop! OS has seemed pretty stable that way. So
yeah, and I did have before doing this big switch back where I'm always going to stay Linux forever now, Tim. But over the summer when I was going back and forth,
Linux for life?
I did see the same. Yeah, Linux for life. That should be a hashtag, Linux for life.
A hashtag, okay. All right.
Even though I'm not on Twitter anymore. Hashtag Twitter for life.
Wait, are you not? Are you not on Twitter?
Well, I'm
Did you
still
get
on
off
Twitter.
of Twitter?
Well, I popped in this morning just to check it out and see, oh, what am I missing? Because I haven't been on it for a couple weeks. I'm like, oh, not much. So.
Not much. Lots of people leaving Twitter. That's what it seems
Yeah,
like.
that's actually
some voluntary.
That's
some
actually what I did
involuntary.
I was curious about that because the news that Elon Musk rolled in this week with his own developers and turning the house upside down.
Did he roll in with his own developers?
Well, remember, when the deal got closed, I think it got closed like Thursday before our show or something like that. He rolled into Twitter that Thursday or that Friday with a sync to create a pun saying, "Let this sink in."
Oh, is
Elon
that it?
Musk is here.
Let it sink in. Is that
let
what
it sink in?
Oh,
so he was carrying this sink. I was like,
okay.
all right. But then he brought his own Tesla developers in, pretty much locked out the Twitter developers, and just reviewed the systems, the code, and there was going to make a decision of who was going to stay and who's going to go. And I guess that's happening today. So
I had not seen that much of it. I didn't know he.
So I have a former
team.
When I remember from the Menu Genie days.
Yeah, I have Menu Genie.
Some
of our listeners may not remember Menu Genie. They might not remember that Menu Genie was there, right?
Menu Genie was the Grubhub before Grubhub was in the Lehigh Valley.
I like how you did that. It wasn't before Grubhub was, but it was before Grubhub expanded to the specific territory that Menu Genie served.
Yes, and then they crushed us like a bug.
And now, now even Uber is delivering food, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't.
There's so many. There's like
do that.
DoorDash, Uber Eats.
It always comes cold.
Everything.
I don't do that. I don't trust Uber or any
Especially
food
like
delivery service.
The stickers they put over those bags to be like, so it's sealed.
Unless you're gonna do some like sandwiches, subs,
right?
Something that I kind of works well for delivery. Then I'm all about it. But but if it's like hot food, come on, I'm not.
No.
It always comes
but
messed
I've
up.
seen it. I've seen it like at Five Guys and Chick-fil-A. Like they fold over the to-go bag and they slap that sticker on that says sealed for. That sticker's not sealing anything.
Yeah.
Like these bags are slick. They'll just pull it right off. You don't think your driver's stealing some fries on the way home with your Five Guys? I'm pretty sure he is. I'm gonna say I'm
so gross.
I'm pretty.
He's just putting his hand in your bag the whole time as you're just driving.
But like, okay, tell me this. Have you ever driven home with a Five Guys order?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Is it possible to be in the car with a bag of Five Guys and not sample a fry or two?
Yeah, especially when they just dump the fries in the bag.
I know, just like I'm just gonna throw them.
Just so they could have this effect of like, oh, we give you so many fries. The container, the cup that's supposed to hold them cannot maintain the amount of fries we're going to be putting in there.
Yeah. I mean, normal people would be like, maybe we should get a bigger fry container. Five Guys is like, no. This makes everybody feel like they're getting extra, but it's always the same. Like you get this idea that they just threw in the extra stuff they had. No, they cooked a specific batch of fries for you, and you got them all. But anyway, so it's impossible. I say it's impossible for that DoorDash deliverer to deliver your Five Guys and not take a fry or two. I don't think that's even.
And that's
possible.
You're really grossing me out though. Well, that's why I don't do the food.
That's why you
don't trust it. I don't trust
it. Hopefully, because you see, that's not a sub. Now a Subway, you can't steal something off of a Subway sandwich without somebody knowing. Like if you have not been through the Subway training, I don't believe you can wrap a sandwich in that way, because like every time I unwrap it and try to wrap it again to save like half of it, you know it was not wrapped at a Subway. Some untrained, unskilled worker has wrapped it. So I feel like if you got a wrapped Subway sandwich, they haven't got into it.
That's true. Well, getting back to Twitter employees, I actually had something meaningful to say about this.
I am playing your role today, and it is, I gotta say, it is fun.
And the reason why I brought up the Menu Genie days is because we did have an intern from Lehigh. She was finishing up her senior year at Lehigh. She was a computer science major, and we got her as an intern. I don't know why she thought working for Menu Genie would be a good thing, but I guess she wanted to kind of see what a startup was like. So she was like, all right, I'll be an intern with you, work for you about like 6 to 9 months. She was a really good developer, really smart. And then she after she moved on from us, she went to work for Amazon. She moved to Seattle, worked at Amazon headquarters where they're I'm not sure what part of Amazon. I think it was their cloud services, AWS. I think she was under, and she worked there for a while. And then she moved to Twitter. So she's been at Twitter for a few years now.
Okay.
And she's always been tweeting about how she loves the experience, and she's has a lot of friends there, and she's always talked about it. And then once the Elon thing happened, man, she was not an Elon fan to begin with. Once he started making rumors that he was going to start to buy the place and take it down or rework it or do whatever. So, but I was curious about that this morning because I've heard hearing about the possible layoffs. I was curious what she was saying. She did tweet a couple things. She doesn't know where she's at yet, this morning, so she hasn't been notified if she's one of the ones who are selected to stay or go. So.
I believe, well, from whatever I've been seeing, because you no longer have access to any of the tooling.
The tooling? What do you mean?
Like that's what I saw in the headlines is that pretty much people found out last night at like 8 o'clock local when their access to internal tools was just Slack. Nope, no more Slack access. I guess that means I'm on the way out. So
yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting times, especially I think not just with Twitter. Well, I don't know. We talked about how I'm not a huge fan of what Elon I think is going to be doing. He's going to turn to WeChat, the American version of WeChat, and the last thing that I want is my identity to be tied to a payment system that somebody can control. So I don't know.
Especially since the listeners of this podcast already know what companies you have credit cards with. And
if you want to see a full list of that, we'll talk about that last week.
We need to. We're gonna make sure we don't expose anything else on Mark's financial.
But it will be interesting to kind of see what happens over the next year with Twitter and how that gets reworked, and then also with other companies too, because I think it's going to be a rough time over the next 6 months to a year, as there's shufflings. Like Stripe is doing a big layoffs.
Oh, are they?
I think they announced like what 15-20%.
Well, today's the time to announce the layoffs. That's for sure, because no one's going to pay attention to you. But I saw the other day. So it's been a couple months now. Twilio's laying off 11%, or was in the process of laying off 11% of the workforce. So, but the one thing out of it all, I know it's we probably shouldn't be talking about it because there's varied and very passionate opinions about all of this stuff. But like the one thing I see is these 12-hour shifts and we have to work hard to deliver these goals, and I get it. I get like the point, but to me that's never resonated with me for work. I don't find my meaning from work. I'm sorry. Like there's part of your personality and how you value yourself from the thing that you do for employment, from the thing that you do to make money. And I get that, but not to the point that I'm like, no, this is my life. You want me to work a 12-hour shift? I'm sorry. I'm looking someplace else, like immediately. That's just not going to happen.
Well, that's kind of what Elon was threatening. I think over the past week when he brought in his own engineers,
I think they are.
He said like, okay, you have 1 week to revise the blue checkmark system.
Oh, the checkmark system?
Twitter Blue, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which that's another issue.
Twitter Blue is a different thing.
Or they're going to rework that. They're going to rework that system, whatever. So Elon says, I'll give you 1 week. You're going to work 12 to 16 hours a day. We're going to see who's committed. And it's going to see who can actually be productive, implement this new thing that I'm just telling you have to get done in 1 week, and then we'll make a choice of do you stay or do you go?
Yeah, and I would be like, I'm out. Sorry, did not sign up for that.
And, well, anyway, are you going to be signing up for your blue check mark?
Oh, if I
you're going to pay $8 a month
to have my identity verified. You see, that's one of the things where like I would do that probably. Like
$8 a month though. Like you're gonna be on the hook. Not almost $100 a year just to have a little blue authenticated check mark next to your
But
Twitter.
I can see the value for it because also it was like after a while you could apply with the right credentials, and then they were like, no, only super important people can apply. And it's like, oh, thanks for that. Yeah. And I get the philosophy a little bit because, I mean, it's been pretty clear he doesn't think the bots on Twitter are a good thing. The fake
Which I would
accounts.
agree with. I would concur.
Yeah. Well, let's say it took me having 7 kids, I think. 6 or 7. It wasn't until the 7th Twitter account I signed up for my child that they finally were like, "We think you might be spamming." So that's what it took before they're like, "Wait a second. This feels like this is one person running a massive Twitter," and it's like, yeah, but they're for my kids, so come on. And they were like, oh, okay.
Look at the faith that you're showing in Twitter. That's going to be around for forever. Where you want to have an account ready for your kids just to roll in when they're ready to actually start to be a social media adults and to be able to step into that world. You're creating about this. I never do that. I do have a rule though, which I do apply. I do as soon as we have a kid, I buy the domain name. So I have that reserved.
Of course, you buy their domain.
Make sure you have the .com for your kid. You always should do that. First and last name. But I never done like a social media account for them. So like, okay,
Mark's like,
I'm gonna.
name a star after you. No, I bought a domain name.
That's right. Make sure it's .com. Got to.
Yeah, like the top level. This is the best domain names, the ones that end in com.
That's right.
Yeah, well, the thing one of the reasons I do it, and I've actually run out now. I can't get them all their like what I would consider the best username for them, the first initial, middle initial, and last name, because some of them was already taken. It's like I hate it when you go to a service and you're like, okay, I'm finally going to sign up for this, and you realize, nope, somebody has, because I'm TJ Lytle everywhere, and then it's like, well, I don't know. I'm probably not going to use you if I can't get that. If I can't get that username, I'm probably not going to use you, or that or let me use a email address as my username or something like that. But yep. So that's why I do that. But it took that long for them to think that I was spamming them or creating bot accounts or something like that.
Well, it's like I think there is some, like you said, there is some value in that type of service where you can do some verification and to show that verification.
Yeah, just let us all do it but just let us all prove that yes, I am me.
I don't mind paying a nominal fee. Like if it was like $20 a one-time fee
to do it, to get in there, yeah.
And then you got it, and then you went through the process, and it was good to go, and then I would be kind of fine about that. But you know me, I'm like every week I'm reviewing my list of subscriptions that I subscribe to, and always just evaluating.
You hear that New York Times games?
I do. I have an Emacs org money document that basically lists all my subscriptions that I do, and it's just a reminder of like this is all the money that's being sucked, being just drained from my life,
automatically withdrawn from me.
And I do have a list of yearly subscriptions. I pay, save some money to pay them in bulk for the year, and then I have my list of monthly subscriptions, and I'm always looking at that monthly. I'm like, can I cancel that? Can I cancel it? It's like, how much do I use it?
Mark is far more organized about this stuff than me.
Oh, because it really bugs me, because I feel like the subscription model, even though I totally understand it's a business model.
Yep.
And it totally makes sense. But as a user, I'm like, it just feels so draining. Feel like, do I really? That's why I'd lean towards, if I can, do the yearly thing. If I feel like, okay, I get value out of this product, I know that I'm going to use it a good amount over the next year, like an educational product. Like I'd pay
use it for a year and then maybe see what you're
like. I paid for Duolingo, the family plan, educative, which I talked about that. It's a great kind of text.
That sounded really interesting.
Text-based, kind of quiz-based online learning system for tech. So I'm just using that for myself to kind of refresh on some things and to learn C++, kind of help me out with that. So I don't mind, and I feel like I can save money. Like if I can, pay 70% of what I would do for the monthly thing, then I would definitely pay up front for that. And I feel like I get value of that. But just those $10, $15, $20, sometimes $5 little subscriptions just add up, and you don't even think about them.
Yeah.
So
that's the truth.
But then I'm paying $10 for a search engine every month. So I was
going to say, and then you buy your domain names which are yearly. So I mean, there's a little,
yeah. Well, you gotta find. I'm not gonna say who I buy my domains through, because I've given enough information out in the show.
Right.
But if you do shop around, there are some good places, some reputable places that don't spam you, and you get good values. Don't go to GoDaddy, because they just keep raising the prices. And then they're gonna like spam you for other products and
yes. I mean, plus being like GoDaddy. Come on. But Namecheap is a good place.
Namecheap's good. Yeah. There's a bunch of them, but.
Yeah, I remember.
I wouldn't pay more than like $12, 12 to
no. You're
15
like,
for a domain.
Really? 12? Is that what it's up
for
to?
Like a .com.net? Yeah.
A .com? Really? I thought I was getting them back when they were $7, $8. Is it going?
Oh yeah. Well, that was back in the day, Tim. But if you go to GoDaddy, I think you
with
pay
the price of gas. I mean,
they may give you
those domains just cost so much.
They like to give you a discount for the first year, but they're going to jack it up to $20 a year.
Is that what they do?
Something like that. Yeah.
Man. I had a thought. You were talking about all the services. I had a thought, and then I just completely went away. So I don't know what it is now.
Getting back to Emacs, Tim.
We weren't there. We you talk about it, but we weren't there.
Back to my favorite tool on Linux.
Back to Emacs.
My Doom Emacs, and nothing I discovered. I think I discovered it last week, but I didn't really talk about it too much. Was the fact that I did talk about GitHub Copilot. I was using Copilot with Visual Studio, and I did feel Visual Studio Code. I don't know if that's a Linux compatibility issue. If Visual Studio Code just feels slower to me than on Linux than it does on Windows. So I don't know if that's just a Visual Studio Code thing or not. But
They do a little check. They're like, is operating system Linux? Sleep 1.
Yeah, put a little bit of delay there. Slow the clock down a little bit. So I was thinking, okay, I was really enjoying GitHub Copilot, but in Visual Studio and Linux just kind of felt clunky and felt kind of slow. So I was just did some searches like, can I actually get Copilot running with Emacs? And there is a developer who has an Emacs package for that, because if you look on GitHub Copilot's site, they have plugins for the JetBrains. They have for Visual Studio, and also NeoVim, which is a variation of Vim as like a Vim plugin. So what this developer did was he converted, took the open source NeoVim plugin and made an Emacs package out of it. And it works great, and it's super, super fast. So I'm like coding along in my Emacs and my visual mode, Vim mode, and kind of moving around and kind of seeing the autocompletes that are happening. And I'm getting giddy, Tim. Like I like the suggestions that it's making. It's so funny when I'm like using it, like from the 1 line to the 2 line suggestions that it says it's good. I'm like, oh, yeah, I was going to write that anyway. Like you read my mind. Now I don't have to write it. It's like it really seriously is like magic.
Or was that the algorithm of a professor at a college that you just thought after you saw it, you're like, oh yeah, that's what I would write if I was him?
So like the 1 line completes have been magical. I love that. And then also something happened this week.
1 line completes are like a if, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, obviously you mean the variable right above it, and probably the variable, some other thing, and oh, look at, you did something similar, so let me guess. So those type of 1 line completes.
And so for this week, for my object-oriented programming class, I was trying to give them like a starter kind of game template. So I was like, to kind of speed up towards the end of the semester, I'm going to be asking them to make a game. So I thought, well, why don't I just give them some kind of starting files that does a lot of boilerplate stuff? Because I really, I don't mind if I give that code for them and then they can build on top of it. Right. And also kind of similar to what would happen in the real world anyway. So I was writing some class files to manage like the window, like a game window. So I start up a new, window.py, and it was a Python class. I just did class window parentheses. It suggested to me, it must have been like 100 lines of code. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, okay, really? And I looked at the suggestions like, oh, why not? Why not just hit tab? Let's see what it does. Okay. So 100 lines was inserted into my code. I looked at it, and it did make sense. It was mostly properties and getters and setters. So like properties that would pertain to for the window, like, the X and Y, the width, height, the surface, when you're using Pygame, you're writing to like a surface object for the window. So like a lot of different properties and getters and setters to modify that, also some references to Pygame and how for drawing to the window. And it worked. Now it wasn't perfect, which especially the large blocks of code is not 100% perfect. I did have to go back and rename a couple things or to my preferences or to maybe delete a couple things. But the suggestions that I made, I was like, wow, it saved me a huge amount of time. So basically have this like over 100 line class file that I had to write myself. So I was like, okay, that's good. So like I said, every time this happens too, I get giddy. I laugh inside because I'm like, this is like a pleasurable experience. I'm like, I'm really enjoying programming right now.
Made programming fun again by not actually programming.
Exactly. So like I was using it as a teaching tool to do like live coding, I was talking about, which that's been a great experience because it has sped up the time I actually had to physically type the code in front of students, but just putting together large amounts of code that just like, especially the boilerplate stuff.
It makes sense because you said physically type.
Yeah.
And you do actually physically type. It just bothers me when people say, "Oh yeah, that was it. I want to see it physically on the screen." No, you're not. It's not. It's virtually. It's not there. Like that. They talk about it being, a physical. It's no, it's not. It's not. It's never physically. Anyway, so but yes, you do physically type, and that made that faster. So that's I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Well, until we can actually get to the point where we can just think about the code and it just appears on the screen. Like once we can get wired in, we can just plug in
neural link.
Yeah, we get the neural link that Elon's also working on. That we can eventually get to that point.
He's not actually working on it, right? He's convinced people to work ridiculous hours and sacrifice their lives to try to create this. That's a different thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sign me up. Beta version 1.
Beta version.
Plug me in. Let's go.
Mark's like, I don't want to do your Twitter thing, but yeah, something that goes into my mind. Sure, let's do it. Let's do it right now.
Yep.
Anyway, I had a couple. Okay, we got more Emacs.
No, it's just like I think I'm done with my Emacs and my Linux love for this week. But like I said, that's also interesting too about Linux, where there is like a couple applications. Like, do you? And I think I've asked this before. Like, is there like one or two applications that you can't live without, or you feel like you're drawn to because they work really well on the platform? Because I believe that's why I went back to Linux, was when I was using these other IDEs, and I still use, like I said, I have the JetBrains IDEs installed, still have Visual Studio Code installed, so I'll go back to that every now and then for certain things. But the reason I was drawn back to Linux because I was trying to use Emacs on Windows, it always just felt like a clunky experience. But then once I went back to Linux, it's super fast, smooth, and it makes like I said, it makes my job of what I do every day by either preparing code or working on projects, or it makes it just a better experience. So like the tools are so important for developers for just feeling good about what they do. I think, at least for me, it does.
Yeah, for me, when you say applications I can't live without, I mean it's going to be JetBrains IDEs. Like that's easy. But then because of my unique setup with different machines, Synergy or Seamless or whatever you want to call that project, which was based off of Seamless is the company that kind of took over the open source project, which was Synergy. They made it. It is now commercial. I pay for it. There's a new open source project that's not the commercial version.
And there is one thing I'm going to do, which actually brings up a good point. That's the Seamless product, because I do have a couple Macs that for some testing purposes, like just some the trash can Macs. Those.
Oh, really? Those.
I have a couple because we had like a bunch of those at school
okay.
We moved away from those to we upgraded to a PC lab. So I have a bunch of these that I actually want to network them together.
Did you say that you went from a Mac to a PC and we consider that an upgrade? I like that.
Yeah. So I have these trash can computers, which fit nicely around my desk, but I don't want to tie them up to. I don't want to connect another monitor to it. That's what they look like, little black trash cans. And you could actually toss stuff because it has like an
which
opening.
Which one do I empty?
It has like an opening for the vent, right, for the air to come out. You can just toss tissues or whatever trash in there. It'll collect it. It will.
Right there. I'm shaking it like I don't know why my hard drive's not functioning the way it used to.
It's a very heavy trash can. Yes.
Very heavy trash can. Okay.
But anyway, I need to hook it up because I want to do some testing on it, and also if I do any iOS development, I need to have a Mac available to me. So I have a couple I took from school just to borrow because it's what teachers can do.
That's what teachers do.
So, but the Seamless product you're talking about is kind of interesting to me because I could run their app on my Linux and on the Mac and be able to kind of control the Mac. On kind of bring up its screen on one of my screens. Like, how does it work?
No, it's not bringing up the screen. So that you just use VNC for. Right, that all exists. Just launch it, log in, boom, you're there. What Seamless does is I actually am running, my Windows box, my Linux box, maybe something else in the future, who knows. And then because I have it running across all platforms, I can move the cursor from my host computer, which is right now my Linux desktop. I just move it across the screen into the Windows machine. So the Windows machine is actually running. I have it screen up. So for your use case, it would be like if you put a screen on that Mac and put it on your desk.
Okay, so it's not going to solve problems. So like I said, I still need like a VNC or some type of window terminal.
That's what you would use. You would use that instead of Seamless. Seamless works when you're running multiple computers and you want to actually have the screen up. You just don't want to have another keyboard and mouse.
So it's the KVM solution. Is it?
No, because KVM has the video in it, right? So KVM is switching from computer to computer with one screen. This is saying, no, I expect that every computer I'm controlling has a screen. So like I said, my Linux box has 3 screens on it. I have the Surface Studio, which has this Surface Studio laptop, which has obviously a screen. And then it has a second screen underneath it. So I just say, hey, let me use my keyboard with Seamless. I can move my mouse from my Linux box right across, the little gap, right into the Windows box. And what it's doing, it's basically doing VNC only without the screen on the Linux box. So it's like you don't have to see the screen because you have the screen in front of you. So I just move the mouse into there and I can do whatever I need to do. It does support like some clipboard management, so I can copy paste text from one computer to the other. But yeah, no, to me it's nice because then I actually do have multiple computers and I leverage the fact that they're multiple computers because one's for doing research and Slack and all that, and the other's my dev system, which I don't have to context switch away from. I can kind of see Slack and go into that easily, and communicate with people because it's all the same keyboard and mouse. So, but no, for you, if you want to do that, I would just run VNC on the Mac and then launch it inside your other computer.
All right, I have to do that.
So it's the opposite of a virtual machine. It's a real machine. You just connect to it through VNC.
See, I thought it would the Seamless would actually provide me that type of VNC. It would almost be like all in one or something like that. I could just but it work. But VNC is free too, right?
VNC is it.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think it's the same. I don't know if it's the same underlying code that like VNC uses for keyboard and input device management, but it's definitely similar in how it maps and says, oh, I know where you are, because it's keeping track of where it is on my Windows screen, because as I move the cursor over, it's like, oh, now you're no longer in it. Now I'm going to start moving it on your host machine again. And it works pretty, wait for it, seamlessly. So, yeah, that's one of the things that I could not work without. So I need that for sure.
And one thing I also rediscovered this week too, because I was teaching it in my classes. Because the way I teach my web design classes, I run them through the whole gamut with learning how to do responsive design with media queries, then Flexbox, CSS Grid, all these modern kind of layout systems within CSS that students should know. But then I introduce CSS frameworks to them, saying, okay, this is Bootstrap, Foundation. Right. My favorite one, Balma, which I haven't used in a while, but I mostly introduced it to students, and I used to use it on a bunch of projects. I went back to it this week. I was like, wow, this is a really, really elegant CSS framework, and how the classes are defined that you use. You add to your HTML elements, and the responsiveness. It's built on Flexbox too. So if you understand Flexbox, because that's also I like showing the students how to do this without a CSS framework, and then when you introduce a CSS framework to it that's built on top of the systems that they're learning about, then you can see, okay, it actually makes things a lot easier than if you need to modify it or make changes to it. Like when you overwrite it with your own CSS rules, you're able to do that. So I went back to that CSS framework. Like, you remember about Balma.io? Have you ever seen that framework?
I remember seeing it years ago, I think.
It's a really, really great framework, because I love frameworks when they use really clean naming systems, where just learning, because that's one process about learning using a framework or a library in general, that if you have to take time to really study the naming system or the conventions that are used within it, it takes so long to get to the point. And with Balma, it's so intuitive with how they name their classes and the system, and how you can combine them together with other classes. And so it's just a really good, pleasant system for a front-end developer. So I was going to ask you, is there a framework that or library that you almost couldn't live without? Or if you use it, you always go back to saying, it always makes me feel good when I use it, because it feels like it's a really well-built piece of software that developers put a lot of love into, and it brings a lot of joy to your life.
A framework
or library.
That's a tough. I mean, I like the Laminos code base a lot. When I need some type of component. But a library, I would honestly say, for me, well, from a PHP developer standpoint, you can't live without Composer, which is the dependency management system, right? Like you could install libraries and packages without it, but I don't know why you would. So yes, Composer.
Well, unless you have npm.
No. Composer, which manages all the PHP dependencies, and if I'm going to spin up a project, it's going to be Composer and PHP unit. But I love, from a mocking standpoint for testing, Prophecy. Prophecy is my favorite mocking library.
That's something new for me. So describe that.
PHP spec people. So I like it. I like how it treats mocks a little bit better than the built-in PHP mock objects.
Is it a full testing framework?
Or is it a mocking? Prophecy is just a mocking and assertion.
Okay. So you still use? Oh, I see. It still uses PHP unit.
You can use PHP unit, or you can use other testing frameworks. Okay. It just builds that mock object that then you can make assertions on. Hey, did this happen? Or I expect this will happen. And I really like the way it behaves, because it allows you to change the predictions with other predictions. So you can almost say, hey, if I set the username to Mark, then when I call get username, it should return Mark. And then you're like, well, aren't you just basically describing the behavior of what you're mocking? Well, yeah. And when you have to use a mock, but you have to have some of those, well, I don't really want to assert or make it fragile and say, whatever you give me, I'm going to, I expect you to give me Mark. You can just say, no, whatever you pass in as a name, when you say call get name, I'm going to return whatever you last passed. So you can actually mock some pretty interesting behaviors when you're in a situation where you need to use a mock, and you don't want to go through, say, some tedious or more fragile test setup on your mock. So no, I like Prophecy a lot.
Oh, look at that. But it is a PHP
Yes.
mocking framework. So
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, would it be surprising that I would be interested in anything else? I mean,
that would be the day. Once you tell me that you've actually not jumped ship, but you actually found this language and that you've fallen in love with it, and you're starting to use it a little bit more than you use PHP, I will be amazed. Because you know me, I like to change my languages. Like
you do.
I change my underwear. So
that's more than we
every other day.
More than we need. No. Yeah, he doesn't want to have a social media presence, folks.
And I was thinking about that too. After our conversation last week, how I want to get off all the social media networks. I want to loofah me. I want to clean them up. I want to purify my online presence. But then I do a show with you, or I think about, I got to get my blog back online so I can start, putting messages. I think my issue is, I want to basically have control over the platform where I put my content. I think that's my thing.
I like that.
I like putting content out there, but I want to own the platform in a sense, or have an ownership stake in it.
Here's something. So after our conversation last week, I'm just trying to pull it up right now. I took a look at the new Blue Sky, the AT or the AT protocol. I'm guessing they're calling it the AT protocol. From a developer standpoint, because obviously I've not been invited to whatever thing that they say is on a wait list, which I don't even know that they have anything. They just want a sign up list. So
is it Blue Sky Web? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
BlueSkyWeb.org?
Okay. Yeah.
I haven't. I know you talked about this. I've heard about this, but I haven't taken.
Or atproto.com is where you'll get stuff about the AT protocol. But it seems like it's very much focused on identity. Validating who you are. And then when you look at how you're going to store your data, that's what, and for people who know how Mastodon works and all that, maybe I'm wrong. And I will admit that I don't know it well. I'm just looking from the outside. What I saw, the feel I get from the Mastodon crowd is, yes, we have this federation thing, where you don't have to tie your content to one place, like Twitter, or even say Facebook. You can sign up at a Mastodon server that reflects you and your personality or your whatever that you're comfortable at, and then you can federate it so other people can follow you, so they don't have to be on the same Mastodon server. So you don't have to be on like the PHP server, I think is what I'm on. You can be on your code of or language of the week server, and then you can follow my user, and that makes sense, and it works. But I believe that's where the federation stops. It doesn't allow me to easily, I may be wrong, but I don't see how it allows me to easily say, you know what, I want to jump ship from this. I want to join a different Mastodon server, and I want my data to follow me. When you read through the AT protocol docs, they are very much trying to set that up where you can, it feels, they don't say blockchain, but it feels very much like your history is in a cryptographically signed or whatever log of sorts, and it can be stored in multiple data repositories. So you can put it in multiple places, and if you decide, I don't want to use that data repository anymore, I want to use this one over here, completely fine.
And does it have a way to revert? So let's say if your information is being federated between multiple systems or networks, and you decide, okay, like me, I want to pull back a little bit and be a little bit more private. Can I revert that and pull that information back out?
I don't know. I don't know about that, because that's my interest.
Because that's what I think that's what I want control of. So let's say if you
deleted it, it would just be deleted.
Yeah, let's say you and I become enemies, and we say, okay, we can't do this podcast anymore. Well, we could have control to pull that information out, right? Same thing
to remove the podcast.
Yes, I can remove the RSS feeds from all the networks, from Podcast 2.0 Index, from the iTunes Store or the iTunes RSS feed.
think you'd be able to do that.
So I know you, but you have control over that. That's what I'm saying. And just like if I have my website, if I was like, all right, I don't like the content of my website,
Yeah,
I
I could just
pull it
delete
down.
it.
I've control over that, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want. In a sense, I would be very enticed for be part of a social network or social
Yeah, I feel
system.
yeah, because you can transfer your data repository. You can say I no longer want it here, I want it over there. So you could just say I no longer want it here without the over there part.
Yeah, and Facebook, I think it was Facebook or Instagram. I can't remember. One of them does provide a way to download your
Yeah, there's
information.
like a export all my stuff.
Yeah, so there is a way to do that, but then getting to do well, you can delete your whole account, but then I don't trust it. Are they really deleting your whole account? You know, it's kind of that's the other thing too. Putting your faith into these walled garden social networks where like they try to give you a little bit of control, saying, okay, if you want to deactivate your account, delete it, make it private, you could do that. But then to really be sure that your data is pulled out of there, if you want to, let's say, pull it out and place it someplace else, making kind of guaranteeing that happens, I think that's an important feature to have.
And it looks like from looking at the data repositories to me look very Git-like, where one commit builds on another commit, builds on another commit. So there's some type of tree that has, that kind of shows you what history is. You should be able, what I'm understanding as I'm looking at the protocol, you should be able to keep your data in multiple places. So you could have multiple data repositories. You should be able to remove it or get it removed. Like that was one thing they're saying is if for some reason whatever data repository you're on doesn't want you anymore or doesn't want anybody anymore, you should be able to easily transfer that to a different data repository.
Yeah.
Then the thing that was interesting was, I forget what they called it, but this idea that there are certain things that happen. They have it in a section called Achieving Scale, and they call it small world networking versus big world networking, where small world networking is like, hey, the people you follow in your own posts, aggregating them so you can see them. That's small world networking, and that happens, I think, that happens in your data. I don't know if it's want to say your data repository or your personal. Yeah, I think it's your personal data server does that. But then they have these crawlers that do the big world stuff, like the aggregation of, well, how many people have viewed your post? That isn't your personal server that has to handle that type of stuff. That is these bigger world things that connect to your personal server and see it. So think of it as like like a podcast 2.0. I'm going to look at all these RSS feeds and I'm going to gather data from it and present you a view of the world that says, hey, here's aggregate data from all of these individual feeds. Where do the feeds live? The feeds live on their own servers, right? And the feeds live on your server. And if your server goes down, we no longer count that because it's no longer there. I can't get to it. But this more metrics like how many people are following you. Well, that the crawling index does, and indexer, I guess, does, and kind of adds that data. So separating those two things, I think, allows to have that notion of I can just change my personal data server. If I'm not if I'm not a technical user, I'm probably using some service that allows me to have my data repository there and is my data server. If I'm you or me, maybe I'm running that someplace, which is very much more like what I want to be able to do. I want it to be like a blog.
Yeah, this sounds like a really could be a great platform to build a website on top of, like your own personal website,
right? And
as a developer that you're maintaining, but then it has this protocol that can then send the data out. Which that's the other thing that with personal websites, which you can, you could have an RSS feed. You could probably send an RSS feed, but you are to really get your information out. You're really depending on the search engines, or if you're trying to do some like social media marketing and sending links out of the articles that you post. That's why everyone went to Medium. Because it gave you that platform. If you're a writer and you like to make posts, well, that gives you distribution mechanism to do. With your personal website. Yeah, it's a little bit more manual or the process. Yeah. But this sounds like a great feature that you could add if you build your website on top of, and it could basically federate your data. That'd be kind of good.
And to me, it feels like if you wanted your own personal kind of like site blog, okay, maybe I'm putting out different content. Some things are long form content. Some things are shorter, just tweets, essentially, little, whatever micro blogging was the term that they used before everybody just coalesced around Twitter. You could probably connect that and say, oh, when I put a long form post, here's the small version of that, and that can go out on my my at protocol as, oh, that was a post, because I'm guessing there's some limit, or maybe you want it to have some limit, right? And it can refer back to your link, but you should be able to say, oh, it's all the same thing. It's not like it's an integration between, my blog and Twitter where I have a summary that I tweet that post.
Yeah.
No, it's like
Yeah.
my blog then, when you look at it from a at protocol standpoint, just reduces big long form posts to small thing, takes image posts and just does the thumbnail, does whatever it needs to do to communicate with whatever this is, which is kind of like, not known yet exactly how it's going to shape up and work. But I feel like you can have a much tighter integration where it's like, well, this is my way I want to communicate, and other people can kind of subscribe to it through these mechanisms. So it feels to me like kind of the next version of that RSS-like self-publishing concept, with this layer of federation and identity over top of it to make it easy for interaction to happen and people to actually take that next step and say, oh, how do I comment on your post? Well, you can, using the at protocol, so you don't have to say, well, I have my own comment section. Oh, I want to see people's, because that's the thing, right? You put comments on your blog, right? Anybody can comment on it. How do you know who they are? Well, maybe you make them have a WordPress login. Okay, not everybody has a WordPress login.
Yeah.
But if it can be a more universal thing where it's like, oh no, I know, I'm just dropping in. This is all over, this at protocol notion. If it takes off and if it gains ground, and you can just comment and it'll have your identity tied to it.
Yeah, it isn't. I'm super on board with this. I'm looking at the site at proto.com, atproto.com, where you can see the technical information about the proto, which I signed up to be part of the list here, so that's good. So because it's interesting, they're putting the documentation so you can actually see how kind of just generally how it's being built. I do like how their identity system here is very simple. So users are identified by domain names in the app protocol. These domain names map to cryptographic URLs which secure the user's account and its data. I love that.
Right. Yep.
Going back to domain names, like everybody should have them.
Everybody should have a domain name. That's right.
And that's the one true source of identity, right? What's your domain name? But I like this idea that a mapping in the system, though, mapping the domain name to a cryptographic URL to basically almost then privatize your information then. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing private public key signing, things like that,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken here. So then you have authenticity that, yep, this is this user.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know it hasn't been changed because it's signed. So I think it's interesting. I'm interested to see where it goes. I feel, here's the thing. I mean, whether you like him or not, Jack has probably thought about what he wishes Twitter would have been for many years.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like this is maybe I see the problems. I see the issues. I see where we could have done it differently. And now I have the opportunity to do it differently.
Yeah. It turned into a beast that he did not expect.
I think so. Yeah.
And he admits that. And that's why he left, and he, kind of let go of it a bit and then suggested for Elon to buy it so that he could redo it. And I'm sure him and Jack are definitely talking. I think like Jack said he doesn't want to be on the board of the private company, but I think he's definitely an advisor. I think, yeah.
I feel like, and we're going to go full circle back to where we started. I feel like different management techniques, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was Jack that was saying, hey, how about just every once in a while we take just a day off as a company so you guys don't burn out. And Elon's like, how about you sleep in the office? How about I've got this idea. We just put beds by your desk, and when you wake up, you can just go back to fixing this thing that I want you to fix. And I can get this. I can understand this. Well, we're going to do this for a little bit to release the things that we need to release to get it done. But if you look at his companies, I don't know that that's ever been the truth. I don't know that it's ever been for a little bit and then we stop. And hey, if that's what is meaningful to you, is to work extremely long hours to build somebody else's dream, hey, here's good news. There are places where you can get a job where that is the culture.
Wasn't that your tagline? Well, I'm a builder of other people's dreams.
Oh yeah, as a contract developer, I build other people's dreams. So there you go.
As long as you get paid well for it, that's all.
That's exactly right. Turns out sometimes they're nightmares. But anyway, turns out maybe that idea wasn't as good as you thought it was. Anyway.
Only if that project comes from Upwork.
Speaking of, all right, I'll go full circle on this one. When it was Odesk, I think I was Odesk verified, which means I scan my driver's license, send it to them so they could be like, no, you are a real person. You're not a bot on our system. Which is why opening up the Twitter verification, I think, is a good thing. I don't know that charging $8 a month for it is a good thing. But this idea that more people can be verified, I found that it felt like there was two pushbacks to that idea. One was people saying, you shouldn't have to pay for this. And I can appreciate that. You shouldn't have to pay for someone to be able to say, is this really you? Especially in contexts where, for people who are well known, where there could be legitimate people posing as them, and there is a concern that, well, are you really you or not? It would be great to verify you, and you're going to say, well, yeah, but if you want that protection from people claiming to be you and being fraudulent about your identity, you have to pay us for it. I can see that being like, no, that doesn't seem right. But I felt the tone of some of the, we don't like that you might let people get this if they pay, was more like a, no, only us really important people deserve to have our identities verified. Only us celebrities deserve to have the I know you're not a bot status. Normal people don't. They shouldn't get the I'm not a bot status.
What Twitter should do is that they should do like a tiered system. So if you have, let's say, over 1,000 users, then you'll pay this, right? Or maybe under 1,000 users, you pay this, right? Very nominal fee. Maybe like it's $5, or maybe it's a one-time fee, right? But then, so
one
for most
fee
users,
I could get behind.
For most users who have, a very, low amount of followers, like around 1,000, or maybe between 1,000, 10,000, whatever, they would pay a one-time fee, good and done, verify the identity. I think a lot of people before that. And then if you scale up to tens, hundreds, millions of followers, then you have to pay a little bit more. And I think
because that verified identity is more important to you, it's still one time fee,
I think it does have more. No, I think it does have more value. I think if you're a celebrity or some, a politician or whatever, I don't know, who has 100,000, 1 million followers, I would actually care more about my identity. So like right now, if I found another Mark Rober online and it's like they're trying to steal my identity, I think it would be cute. I was like, all right. But because I don't know if it would really hurt my business in a sense, right. But I could totally understand where their identity, it really is their business in a sense. It has a financial thing to it. I can see that has more value, and honestly, they should, and they have the money too to kind of pay for that too.
Maybe. I think it depends though. It depends on who you are and why you have the following and what money you have out of it, right? Like not everybody who has a big following is making money off of that following. So, I mean, I feel like if you just said, I know what you're saying, value makes sense. They derive more value from it. Therefore, you can charge them more for it.
Yeah.
But I feel like on that side, more of a cost-based pricing where, hey, this is the what it costs us to verify your identity. And we're just going to pass that on to you. You want a verified identity? Pay us this much. And like you say, a one-time fee.
Yeah.
And it's like, yep, I'm going to submit whatever documents I need. And you can say, yes, this is actually
and then I have
Tim
no problem
Lytle.
with that, yeah.
And when he says he's in Pennsylvania, he is in Pennsylvania. That's really him.
Well, not when my VPN's on. I'm like across the world.
Yeah,
I'm hopping between endpoints.
Yeah, would you even want a verified identity? Because you,
no, I don't. I don't.
You want there to be a little bit of a question mark. Is this really Mark? That's
I would like to create like a fake identity that then I could then verify.
You want to, but that's going to cost you more. That's gonna cost you more. But we'll probably be able to work it out. You can get a fake identity. Wow, I feel like. Here's the thing. I feel like there are people that are selling those fake identities, Mark. As a college professor, I feel like you may know people that know how to get in contact with them. I'm just saying. So shouldn't be too hard. Shouldn't be too hard for you.
We'll see. But I own my own domain name. I will always own my own domain name. I recommend everybody to have a domain name, and that's where your identity should be.
Did you know that I could not get timlytle.com? Somebody else already owned that.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Another Tim Lytle. Yeah. So I am timlytle.net.
Yeah, that's okay. As long as you have a domain name,
One day. Do you have any service out there that waits for it to expire and then buys it?
Oh yeah, but this happened to me. I lost my last name. I used to have Cobraline.com.
Really?
And I let it. I just let it expire. And I think I told you this before. And then guess who bought it?
I don't know.
Somebody that has a business that says Cobraline Sewage.
Sorry.
It's a sewage company, a trash sewage company in Pennsylvania.
I did not realize you were part of a sewage empire.
It's a family business. If you go to Cobraline.com right now, you'll see it. Go to
Cobraline.com. I can't get Lidl.com.
I used to have it, but I got lazy. I let it expire, and then they snatched it up.
Never let this be a lesson to all of our listeners. Never let your domain expire, and always listen to Dev Friday.
Yeah, you should go to Cobraline.com.
Cobraline.com. Man,
let's see what it is. It's environmental services, but yeah, it's a sewage company.
Environment.
And it's funny. I've actually driven by their trucks because they're based out in like the northeast of like north of us.
Yeah.
And that's where they're based out of. But yeah, I've passed their trucks on the highway like once, and I was like, oh my gosh. That's the company that stole my domain name. And look at you can see on the website, Cobraline. That's like it's on their trucks. It's like it's my last name on these sewage trucks.
Are you what am I trying to say? Any relation?
No. Never been contacted them. Yeah, no, it's just they saw the domain name, they grabbed it. It's not bad of a website. Actually, that's a nice website.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, it's
funny.
Why
they show a truck dumping. I don't even understand how this is working. It looks like a liquid tanker thing, but it's open. I know. What?
I don't know either.
And next, we've been protecting the environment since 1960, and what it looks like is they're not. That's what I'm saying. Like that picture says, no, we're not protecting the environment. We are dumping some sludge from our tanker truck almost immediately. But okay. Yep. Pennsylvania and New York. This is because
I used to come up all the time. Like if I just typed in Mark Cobraline, you can just do my a vanity search on Google. I would usually come all my social pages, my personal website, everything would come up first. You type Mark Cobraline, this one comes up near the top.
Mark Cobraline, this comes up towards the top.
Yeah, if I type Mark Cobraline, I think at the Cobraline.com there that comes up. Yeah, I haven't done this in a while. So I don't search for myself every day, Tim. But
only on the days that end in Y.
I'm trying to see Google. Did it comes up? Well, North End it comes up first. LinkedIn. I have a Crunchbase profile. Look at that.
What in the world? River. That's
no. It actually rate my professions. Always. Oh, I don't want to look at that.
Oh, I do.
Because
that's right, folks. The stream's still going. So those of you on Twitter, this is what we do.
Oh no, I'm not looking at that.
Mark Cobraline. I don't rate my professor. Let's figure this one out.
I don't want to.
What do we got? Northampton. Yep. LinkedIn. Crunchbase.
I know. I was like, yeah. It's like I had a startup, right? So that's what.
That Menu Genie? Do I have a Crunchbase profile? This is the worst photo you have of you. This was LV Tech Hackathon.
I don't know. I don't even know if I created this myself. I think this is back in the Lehigh Valley Tech. I think I created it because of Lehigh Valley Tech, and we were talking to people, companies and startups, and I think I was,
I'm just checking myself on Crunchbase. Tim Horton. So there's that. Tim Lytle. I don't. Oh yeah. I guess they pull in other stuff. I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, don't lose your domain name. You'll lose your identity.
Yeah. But you're pretty high up. I mean, no,
they type. Yeah, I'm out there. That's what
you're saying. You're saying when you search for Cobraline, you get yourself.
Yeah, if I just do Cobraline. Yeah, I think that's probably what I was saying. If I searched for Cobraline in the past, I would like my aunt's kind of little well known in the West, so she would come up sometimes.
Now it's just the environmental services Yelp.
So page. And I don't have my markcobraline.com doesn't have any content on it right now. So but my website used to be one of the top. Yeah, but Cobraline environment.
Is Sandra Cobraline your aunt?
No, it's Rosemary.
Okay.
But I don't know if she pops up in the top anymore.
Sandra Cobraline in East Stroudsburg. I
didn't tell you the time I met a Mark Cobraline.
You did?
I did when I was in college in Harrisburg. I went to go pick up some pizza at Domino's. And then I went, and then they wanted to verify your identity because they asked for your license just to kind of make sure that when you're picking up your order, it's the right person they asked for. I said, all right, here's my license. And the guy looked at me, and he was about my age too. It's kind of interesting. He's a young guy, probably a little bit, in college or a little bit older. And he just looked at me. He gave me this like the strange look. He looked at my license, looked at me, and he says, "I'm you." And he showed me his license. And usually I have met Coberlines before that their last name is spelled like Line, and like there's just the misspelling. His name is Mark Coberline, spelled exactly the same way. And if I looked at his license, we were basically the exact same except for our address and the photo. But it was so weird. Meeting myself at a Domino's.
It's not gonna lie. I'm looking at your professor rating.
Oh God. No,
it's actually pretty good. It's
well, maybe this could be a topic of a future show. Maybe we could you could review my rating.
I like this. We're gonna go over Professor Coberline's top tags. I mean, and FYI, 4 people have rated you, so this is not exactly like a statistically relevant group.
The pool is small, right?
Yeah. But I like this.
Okay, it could be a topic for a future show.
You got some good tags. This is definitely a topic for a future show. All right, I'm going to stop the live stream.